So, with nothing else, I figured, IDR Labs has a lot of great, cool tests, so gonna go, sociopath, intelligence, blah blah blah, Star Wars, Harry Potter, more importantly, chaos. So here we go. Put a lot of effort into my physical appearance. I halfway agree. I have secrets that I do not want to tell anyone, not even the people closest to me. Somewhat disagree. Mysteries like the true nature of the universe, or why we're all here, aren't really useful enough for me to spend my time on. Strongly disagree. I enjoy the thought of people being afraid of me. Depends. A normal life without dramatic ups and downs would suit me well. Depends. I am very conscious of my physical health. I'd somewhat agree with that. I see merit in things that others find worthless. Yeah. I have never broken something that belonged to someone else on purpose. I think I refrain from telling people the real reason I did something unless it is useful to do so. I mean, somewhat disagree, I sometimes look through an encyclopedia just for fun. I wish I were better at shrugging off worries. Yeah, sometimes. I can often achieve impressive results without making much of an effort. Yeah, I can agree with that. I keep track of sensitive information that can be used to hurt people at a later date. Most people would probably enjoy hurting others if they had the chance. There's some people, but then there are others. I'm not sure if it's most people. I see potential in people that are dismissed by others. Yeah. People who mess with me always regret it. Depends. I avoid direct conflict with people who may be useful to me in the future. I would agree with that. I worry about dying or falling ill. Not really. I should not have to deal with trivial matters or the humdrum of everyday life. Yeah, there's some things, but I mean, my humdrum is different than other people. I have fantasies that involve hurting people. I have taken drugs with strange and dangerous effects or would be willing to do so. I strive to be tidy and clean, somewhat. I dominate social situations. Not really. I fantasize about extraordinary prestige or status. Sometimes, yeah. Okay. So... Sorry, Slanesh didn't quite make the, top 2 cut in this one. So, Tzeentch and Nurgle. Tzeentch is the power of change, evolution, intrigue, and magic. It is he who weaves the threads that connect every action, plot, and subtle intrigue in a universe-wide game of manipulation. At the end of each of his threads is the bewildered consciousness of one of his puppets. Tzeentch thrives on turmoil and change in many ways. He's the best exemplar of chaos and least understood of the 4 chaos powers. He is the power of fate, plots, and schemes, as well as the principle that exemplifies the ever-constant nature of change. He is continually scheming and altering, even as his intrigues unravel under their own complexity. At the same time, he has the power of knowledge and comprehension, and his devotees may also be those who seek a deeper understanding of an often enigmatic universe. Nurgle is the power of disease, decay, death, and destruction. The emotion of despair in mortals is what empowers him. He is the chaos power most directly responsible for the plights of mortals whose frailty and limited lifespans make them suffer so acutely from the fear of death. However, while Nurgle is the power of death and decay, he is also the force of rebirth. Decay is simply one part of the cycle of life, without which no one could grow. Without which no new life could grow. In the same way, Nurgle is also the power of perseverance and survival. While those who wish to spread corruption are certainly among Nurgle's followers, there are also those who wish to become resilient enough to handle the harsh difficulties of existence presented by an uncaring universe. Slaanesh has the power of pleasure and passion, decadence and lust, self-indulgence and the striving for pleasure at the hallmarks of all who follow him. Slaanesh is also the power of those who are dedicated to the pursuit of worldly gratification, and the upheaval of conventional behavior. He is the power of obsession, of excess in all pursuits. Wherever mortals are ruled by their own unquenchable desires, from gluttony to lust, to megalomania, Slaanesh is there in the shadows, whispering and tempting them further. Those who desire to indulge in the finest culinary delights, the most delightful artworks, and the most sensual clothing, could all be the thralls of Slaanesh. Finally, he is also the power of perfection. The singer striving to hone his voice, or the writer obsessively polishing his prose, could also fall prey to his enticements. And then finally, Khorne. Khorne is the power of fighting war and destruction. It is he who is behind the most basic and brutal of instincts, such as hate, anger, rage, and killing. Every act of destruction in the material universe feeds Khorne more power. The more senseless and destructive, the better. Khorne is wrath incarnate, the embodiment of a never-ending lust to dominate and destroy. It is his sole desire to drown the universe in a tide of slaughter, to conquer and kill every living thing until there's nothing left but blood and carnage. However, though Khorne is the power of destruction, he is also associated with pride, bravery, and honor. Those who set themselves against the most dangerous challenges and earn victory against the odds will also be favored by Khorne. There, that's that. So, we can slip one more in, I think. So there was one here. The word fascism has been robbed of meaning due to overuse in recent years. This test relies on the historically accurate definition to determine how much of a fascist you are. As the American legal scholar David S. D'Amato has pointed out, much of the meaning contained in the word fascism has been lost in its constant and lazy employment as a general term of abuse. Though fascism and fascist have long been pejorative catchwords employed by both right and left in their denouncement of anything they do not like, fascism is in fact no catch-all but a definite political ideology, situated at a complex crossroads between socialism, conservatism, and liberalism. By adopting elements from each of these political philosophies as its own, while simultaneously denouncing others, fascism manages to strike out as a fourth way of doing politics, and a definite system of government. Does your political outlook share any of fascism's doctrines? Let's see. How fascists are used, the statements found in the above questions were extrapolated from the work of both actual fascists, modern-day researchers and writers on fascism. Defining the term fascism was indeed a source of perplexity, even for the first Italian fascists. The issue is furthermore exacerbated by how almost every communist political party and administration has chosen to call itself communist, while in fact, as a matter of historical similarity, such regimes share significant features with state-centric approach to fascism. Truth be told, the first Italian fascists intensified all or almost all of the pre-existing communist practices. Though fascists have traditionally been viewed as right-wing, the political developments of interwar Europe really showcase a different affinity, namely affinity between fascism and communism, rather than the affinity of either with the traditional left or right wing of liberal democracies. Okay. Political challenges of today are so serious that they can no longer be solved with traditional paradigms of political thought. Yes, somewhat disagree. I mean, depending on how far back you go. Politically speaking, the state is a second-order consequence, the derived effect of a people laying claim to their homelands and flourishing there. I mean, people... Okay, yeah, state derives their power from the people, that the people allow this. Ethics is a matter of statecraft. However, whatever furthers the interest of the state is good, whatever inhibits it is bad. I mean, it kind of depends on what it is, but for the most part, states... If a state is to protect the freedom of its citizens in the long run, the state itself must be free to make controversial or unlawful decisions when necessary. They should stay within certain bounds. Honestly. The individual is more important than the state. The honor and worth of a people is proportional with the contributions it has made to global civilization. If a people has not contributed as much, it is of little worth. Running a business is not very hard, and as a rule, the business owner doesn't possess any special skills that are not also possessed by his workers. It takes a lot of effort to start a business. To think it's easy is like boneheaded. A plurality of political parties is necessary to ensure that no one circle of individuals gets too complacent in power. I would agree with that, but having a political party at the same time, if you are dominated by a system with just two parties, it makes it much easier for those parties to line up together behind the scenes because you're only really fighting two sides. And those two sides can come together and fight, Politicians have a responsibility not to upset the traditional ways of communities that live according to their time-honored customs, values, and creeds. So if those values violate someone else's freedom, I can see the traditional ways being like, okay, but are you seeking to tear down someone else's beliefs as well? There's still some boundaries. All people are essentially worth the same, no matter their race, gender, nationality, or IQ. Yeah, we're all pretty worthless. Warfare is the only state that truly shows you what a given people is made of. I would disagree. The economic losses from worker strikes and employer lockouts are just too massive to allow market forces to sort these things out by themselves. I'm not sure where. Classical liberalism is essentially an ideology of the past, and modern attempts to reinstate it are bound to lead to wars. Not necessarily. People shouldn't be allowed to spread dangerous political beliefs or ridicule those with whom they disagree without the permission of the proper authorities. You can go below. The free market is the most efficient way of organizing the economy known to man. I would strongly agree with that. At the same time, well, again, you have to allow it to be a free market. When you allow companies to overrule other businesses that are sprouting up, then that becomes an issue. That really doesn't turn into a free market economy once you get, like, central authorities starting to determine who can exist and who can't. If a people hasn't accomplished much throughout the course of its history, that tells you something about the worth of that people. I mean, it doesn't say that it depends on the definition of worth, but to say, I would say that their cultural values are not as equal if they haven't been able to contribute, per se. Not the worth of the individual, but more of the cultural values that they hold. To view consumer goods and an increase in living standards as ends in themselves is a sign of moral corruption and decadence. Yeah, like, if that's your only measure, then yeah, but if consumer goods and living standards, well, you'd have to look at the people themselves. If you're the living standards and goods being the end-all be-all, that's nice and all. It does take some moral fiber in order to hold that together. When it comes down to it, politics is mostly about the distribution of money, materials, and resources. The people's values and religion are just icing on the cake. Okay, now, for many people, religious doctrine is incorporated into their political beliefs. A person who has nothing to hide has nothing to fear from government surveillance. Except for the fact that, when you get a government that is anti-freedom and they start to use it against people. The struggle between rich and poor, between capital owners and laborers, is a more significant driver of history than the struggle between nations. Disagree, you know. Organizations like the Freemasons and similar secret lodges cannot be trusted since they have their own agendas. I mean, depends. There are no universal ethics. What is true and good for one people may be false and bad for another. There are universal principles. How those are applied is a different matter. It's not logical or efficient to have several companies all making the same tire, the same wrench, the same cable, etc. So the state should step in to coordinate their efforts. Not really. Because one company in competition can innovate their cost, but also make it stronger at the same time. So you're eliminating the innovation that another company might have, bringing different ideas in. People who seek happiness through money and material comfort will never achieve it. Yeah. In the end, economic and technological strength cannot compete with the spiritual strength of the people that has faith in their country. I mean, depends on how you define it, but I can see, like, if you... Kinda. The mode of organization employed by the military is an efficient one. And institutions like schools, the police, and firefighters could generally benefit from adopting more of the military's practices and discipline. It works in the situation. Not all of the... So, schools not necessarily are going to be the high-stress situations that, like, the police and firefighters are going to be in, but the military has a different high-stress situation then. So there are some things you could adopt, but others not necessarily. It depends. Democracy is dangerous to competent statecraft because it forces every political decision to be lowered to a level of stupidity that the masses can understand. Kinda depends, but at the same time, if you're not involving the people and letting them know about the decisions, you're also insinuating that everyone's stupid. So, the individual cannot really claim any rights against the state, since it's the state that grants him these rights in the first place. Well, you know, that one can go. Fascist fellow traveler, thank you. In your case, it would appear that your political outlook shares more than a few of the core doctrines of fascism. Since fascism is really a mix of communism, socialism, conservatism, and liberalism, with a few innovations of its own thrown in, it is scarcely surprising that most people's political outlook will have quite a few similarities with the doctrines of fascism. Even after adjusting for these parameters, however, it would seem that the commonalities between your outlook and fascism are not merely incidental, but arise from certain overall themes, concerns, and solutions which your personal outlook have in common with fascism. While you're mostly likely not a fascist, the overlap between your preferred society and that of fascism is simply too significant to be pure chance. In all likelihood, You're what one might call a fascist fellow traveler, someone who sees values in some of the immediate societal changes that fascism would bring about, but not someone who is an actual fascist. Your ultimate political goal lies elsewhere. F scale test. Anyway, we ended on a good one, I think. Yeah. Where's that one? Yeah, that one. Links and all are down there. You can hate me now, I think, I guess. Even more. Have fun with that. I will see you all later.